You can find people that are really passionate about where their starter came from, how old it is, where they got it from. And I think that's good and fine, right? The fact that you got it from your best friend's grandmother can be a really nice story, but why does it yield a bread with these characteristics? Well, that's because of the microorganisms that are flourishing in it.
Yeah, we know sourdough, we know how that performs, we know how that works in the bread, but you don't know exactly which species, which strands, in depth about, okay, which one, where is that coming from?
Every baker knows, they know roughly how to control it, but no one's really sure what's going on inside it.
This whole experiment really started before we even got here. So you shipped out the flour to all the bakers, so they have a starting material that's all about the same. They then made their starters and brought them here. And once they got here, we used sterile swabs to sample just a tiny bit of that starter. And then we're going to be extracting the DNA to understand what species are in that.
If we think about fermented food in general around the world, we know that when you make a food that's fermented, that some of the microbes must be coming from the food itself, some must be coming from the person who makes the food, some come from the air. And we then know that the mix of those microbes contribute to the flavors of the food. But we don't really know which of those things are coming from which place and what the proportions are. And so how much of the sourdough is really coming from the hands and the body of the person who initially makes it. And so what we tried to do here was to hold a key piece of all of that constant. So the initial ingredients used to make the sourdough, to make the starter, were the same for all of the bakers.
And I think this was nothing special like this because it was sourdough like anybody else. But I'm very surprised about how the different sourdoughs are here in Belgium, because we always have to follow the same recipe, everybody, but we can see the very big difference between the sourdoughs.
Oh man.
We also took swabs from people's hand. We again extracted the DNA from that swab and looked at the microorganism species that are on it. This will provide us a list of species that are microscopic that exist on hands, and a list of species that are microscopic that are existing in the sourdoughs. And we'll be able to look and find out where there might be overlap.
And my personal guess is that when we look, we're gonna see a fair amount of match between an individual baker and what's in his or her starter. But it could be that that's total garbage. And what's really going on is if they all use the same flour to start with, that they're actually very, very similar.
It's getting to know more about the unknown.
The idea that we could pull on the strings of the starter in a really purposeful way, that's a really fascinating idea to me.
For me, this is very important, it's a treasure.
And I think this is a start of maybe more work that will then help us all understand how we can maybe control our sour cultures even more by knowing what is actually imparting all this goodness to them.